I was wiping down table 7 when the room went silent. Not the comfortable quiet of a slow Tuesday afternoon, but the kind of silence that makes your hands stop moving. The kind that crawls up your spine and lodges itself between your shoulder blades like a shard of ice. I didn't look up immediately. 3 years of waitressing at Marcello's had taught me that sudden silence in an Italian restaurant in South Boston usually meant one of two things. Someone important had walked in, or someone dangerous had. Sometimes both. The rag in my hand smelled like lemon cleaner and old grease. I kept wiping, circular motions, buying myself seconds to prepare for whatever was about to happen. Through the kitchen window I could see Marco frozen mid-chop, his knife suspended above a pile of basil. Elena. My name, spoken quietly from the doorway. Not a question, a statement of fact. I turned. 3 men stood just inside the entrance. 2 of them I didn't recognize. Broad-shouldered, expensive suits, the kind of stillness that suggested violence held on a very short leash. But the third man, the one in the center, I knew by reputation alone. Dante Caruso. He was younger than I'd imagined, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair pushed back from his face, gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything in the room without actually moving. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent, and he held himself with the kind of calm that suggested he'd never had to raise his voice to make someone afraid. "You're Elena Vega," he said. Still not a question. My throat felt tight. "I'm working. If you need a table..." "I don't need a table." He took 3 steps into the restaurant, and somehow the space seemed smaller. "I need to speak with you." Behind me, I heard Gianna's sharp intake of breath. She'd been working at Marcello's since before I was born, had probably seen every variety of trouble walk through that door. Whatever she saw in Dante Caruso's face made her back slowly toward the kitchen. "I don't know you," I said, which was technically true. Knowing someone's name wasn't the same as knowing them. "No," he agreed, "but I know you. Elena Vega, 28 years old. Single mother to Sophia, age 4. You work 40 hours here and pick up weekend shifts at the bookstore on Commonwealth. You take the 47 bus home because you sold your car 6 months ago to cover your daughter's medical bills." My heart was hammering now, a sick rhythm that made my hands shake. I set down the rag before he could see. "How do you..." "Your brother owes me money." The words landed like a punch to the sternum. Of course it was about Marcus. "I don't have anything to do with Marcus," I said carefully. "I haven't spoken to him in 2 years." "I'm aware." Dante moved closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe, or just the particular smell of danger. "He borrowed $50,000 from my organization. He was supposed to pay it back in 6 months. That was 18 months ago." 50,000! Jesus Christ, Marcus! "I can't help you," I said, and hated how my voice wavered. "I don't have that kind of money. I don't have any..." "I'm not asking you for money, Elena." He said my name like he'd been saying it for years, like it belonged to him somehow. "Then what do you want?" The 2 men flanking him shifted slightly, and I realized they were blocking the exits. Not obviously, not dramatically, just there, between me and the door, between me and the kitchen, between me and any world where this conversation wasn't happening. Dante reached into his jacket. I flinched, couldn't help it, and pulled out a photograph. He set it on the table I'd been cleaning, careful not to touch the wet surface. It was Sophia, my daughter, caught mid-laugh in someone's telephoto lens, walking out of her preschool, her pink backpack, her favorite shoes with the light-up heels. The small stuffed rabbit she refused to leave home without clutched in her hand. The ice in my spine spread through my entire body. "You've been watching my daughter." My voice came out flat. Dead. It didn't sound like me at all. "I've been protecting your daughter," Dante corrected softly. "Your brother made enemies. Some of those enemies don't care much about collateral damage. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I understood perfectly. Marcus had fucked up, and now Sophia, my Sophia, was standing in the blast radius. What do you want? I asked again, and this time I didn't care that I sounded desperate. He studied me for a long moment. Those gray eyes were completely unreadable, like looking at fog. I want you to marry me. The world tilted sideways. Someone laughed. High, shocked, disbelieving. It took me a second to realize the sound had come from me. You can't be serious. I don't make jokes about business, Dante said. Your brother's debt is erased. You and Sophia receive my protection. Complete protection. Permanent protection. In exchange, you become my wife. Not in any meaningful sense, he added, as if this clarification made the insanity of his proposal somehow reasonable. A marriage on paper, separate lives. You'd have your own apartment, your own schedule. You'd want for nothing. Why? I managed to ask. Why would you possibly? My reasons are my own. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. You have until Friday to decide. 3 days. He turned to leave and panic flooded my chest. And if I say no? Dante paused at the door, his back to me. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet I almost couldn't hear it. Then your brother's enemies become your enemies, and I stop being the man standing between them and your daughter. He walked out. His men followed. The door closed with a small, polite click. I stood there, staring at the photograph of Sophia, her bright smile frozen in glossy paper, and felt my entire life crack open like an egg. Outside, through the window, I watched Dante Caruso slide into the back of a black Mercedes. Just before the door closed, he looked back at the restaurant, at me. And for just a second, I saw something in his expression that looked almost like regret. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the smell of lemon cleaner and the knowledge that everything had just changed. I didn't tell anyone about Dante's proposal that night. Not Gianna, who kept giving me worried looks for the rest of my shift. Not my neighbor Mrs. Chen, who watched Sophia while I worked late. Not even myself, really. I let the words exist in some sealed-off corner of my mind where I didn't have to look at them directly. But when I picked Sophia up at 7:30, when she wrapped her small arms around my neck and said, "Mama, you smell like tomatoes," I held her tighter than usual, breathed in her shampoo, strawberry-scented 99 cents at the drugstore, and felt something sharp lodge itself behind my ribs. "Long day, baby," I murmured into her hair. She pulled back to study my face with those serious, dark eyes that were too knowing for a 4-year-old. "Are you sad?" "No, sweetheart, just tired." She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her mouth pressed into a small line, the exact expression I made when I was trying not to cry. But she was 4, so she let me lie. She took my hand and told me about the turtle they'd seen at preschool, how it had a crack in its shell, but Miss Jennifer said it was okay. The crack had healed over. The turtle was brave. I thought about cracks and healing and bravery the entire bus ride home. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had been under renovation for 6 years. The landlord kept promising improvements that never came, but it was ours. Cheap enough that I could almost afford it. Close enough to Sophia's preschool that I didn't lose an hour to commuting. I made Sophia mac and cheese from a box while she colored at the kitchen table. Drew her bath while she ate. Read her 3 stories even though we only had time for 2 because I couldn't stop thinking about that photograph. About someone watching her, cataloging her routines, her vulnerabilities. "One more, Mama," she said sleepily, already half gone. "Tomorrow," I promised, and kissed her forehead. I sat in her doorway for a long time after she fell asleep, watching the rise and fall of her chest, the way her hand curled around that threadbare rabbit. She'd had it since she was born, a gift from Marcus, actually, back when he'd still been the brother who showed up, who tried, before the gambling, before the drugs, before whatever spiral had led him to borrow $50,000 from a man like Dante Caruso. I hadn't lied to Dante. I really hadn't spoken to Marcus in 2 years. The last time, he'd shown up at 3 a.m., high and desperate, asking for money I didn't have. When I'd said no, he'd called me selfish, cold, said I'd always thought I was better than him. Maybe I had. Maybe that was fair. But I'd also been 8 months pregnant and exhausted, working 2 jobs to save for Sophia's arrival, and I couldn't. I just couldn't set myself on fire to keep Marcus warm anymore. I'd told him to leave, change the locks the next day. And now his choices were reaching across 2 years of silence to wrap around my throat. I made coffee at 11:30, sat at the kitchen table with my phone and laptop, and tried to research Dante Caruso. There wasn't much. A few society page photos from charity events. Him in a tuxedo, always alone, his expression polite and completely empty. One article about his family's import business, which everyone knew meant something else entirely. A single quote from a police detective. The Caruso organization operates with extreme discretion. They're ghosts. I found myself staring at one particular photo, taken at some gala. Dante stood slightly apart from the crowd, champagne glass in hand, watching something outside the frame. He looked lonely, I thought. Then immediately felt stupid for thinking it. Men like him weren't lonely. They were dangerous. I went to bed at 2 and didn't sleep. 3 days. He'd given me 3 days. What would happen to Sophia if I said no? Would Marcus's enemies actually come for us? Or was that just a threat to force my hand? Could I risk finding out? And if I said yes, if I actually went through with this insane plan, what then? Dante said separate lives, paper marriage only, but I wasn't naive enough to believe it would be that simple. Nothing was ever that simple. I thought about my daughter sleeping in the next room, about the medical bills still coming, the creditors who called every Tuesday and Thursday, the constant calculation of which need was most urgent, food or rent, heat or medication, new shoes or winter coat. I thought about protection, complete protection, permanent protection, about wanting for nothing. The worst part was how tempting it sounded. I must have dozed eventually because Sophia's voice woke me. "Mama, there's a man outside." My heart stopped. I was out of bed and at her window in seconds, pulling her behind me with one hand while I looked down at the street. A black car idled at the curb. I couldn't see inside, tinted windows, but I knew who it was. Knew with absolute certainty that Dante Caruso was down there, or one of his men watching. Protecting, I thought, tasting the word. Or threatening. Maybe both. "It's okay, baby," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Just someone who's lost. Go brush your teeth." She padded off, unconcerned, and I stayed at the window, staring down at that car. As I watched, the back window rolled down 3 inches. Just enough for me to see a hand, pale in the streetlight. Long fingers. A signet ring that caught the light. The hand lifted slightly. Not a wave. An acknowledgement. "I see you," it said. "I'm here." The window rolled back up. I stood there until Sophia called for me, her small voice floating from the bathroom, asking if she could use the sparkle toothpaste today instead of the regular kind. "Yes," I called back, my eyes still on that car. "Yes, sweetheart. Whatever you want." The car was gone by morning, but I found an envelope wedged in our mailbox. No postage, no return address. Just my name written in black ink, the letters sharp and precise. Inside, a business card with a phone number and a single sentence in that same careful handwriting. "Call when you're ready to talk." I held it for a long moment before tucking it into my wallet, behind Sophia's insurance card where I wouldn't see it every time I paid for something, where I could pretend it didn't exist. Work was impossible. I burned an order of linguine, mixed up 2 tables, and dropped a full tray of water glasses that shattered across the tile in a sound like breaking ice. Gianna sent me home early with a look that said she knew something was wrong but wouldn't push. "Go," she said gently, squeezing my shoulder. "We're slow today anyway." I picked up Sophia 3 hours ahead of schedule. She was delighted, spinning in circles on the sidewalk asking if we could go to the park. "Please, Mama. The one with the big swings?" I should have said no. Should have taken her straight home, locked the door, figured out what the hell I was going to do. But she looked so happy, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd said yes to something that wasn't absolutely necessary. "Okay," I heard myself say, "but just for an hour." The park was nearly empty, too cold for most families, the November wind sharp enough to sting. Sophia didn't care. She ran for the swings, her jacket flapping open despite my shouted reminder to zip it up. I pushed her for 20 minutes, watching her head tip back with each arc, her laughter cutting through the gray afternoon. This, I thought, this is what I'm protecting. "Higher, Mama. Any higher and you'll fly away." "Maybe I want to fly away," she said, and something about the way she said it, so serious, so certain, made my chest ache. I slowed the swing, caught her on the backswing, and wrapped my arms around her small frame. "Well, I don't want you to. I need you right here." She twisted to look at me, mittened hands touching my face. "Forever?" "Forever," I promised. "Even when I'm big? Even when you're bigger than me?" She seemed satisfied with this, wiggled free and ran toward the slide, leaving me standing by the empty swing, watching her pink coat disappear up the ladder. "She looks like you." I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. Dante stood 10 feet away, hands in his coat pockets, his expression unreadable. He'd appeared from nowhere, or I'd been too distracted to notice him arrive. The thought made my skin crawl. "You're following me now?" I kept my voice low, conscious of Sophia at the top of the slide. "I'm following up." He moved closer, stopping at a distance that felt deliberate, not threatening, just present. "You didn't call." I didn't decide. "No," he agreed. "You're still hoping there's another option." The accuracy stung. I crossed my arms, more for warmth than defense. "Maybe there is." "There isn't." He said it without cruelty, just fact. "Your brother borrowed from 3 different organizations before mine. The other 2 don't have my patience. One of them sent someone to your apartment building last night." My blood went cold. "What?" "He never made it past the lobby. My men were already in position." Dante's gaze shifted to Sophia, who was now trying to climb up the slide backward, giggling at her own rebellion. "You didn't notice because I made sure you wouldn't have to." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to grab Sophia and run until we reached somewhere safe, except I was starting to understand that nowhere was safe. Not anymore. Not without. "Why marriage?" I asked instead. "If you just want to erase Marcus's debt, why not just erase it? Why involve me at all?" For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not quite discomfort, but close. "I have my reasons." That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm offering. He pulled something from his pocket. Another envelope, thicker this time. "Lease agreement for an apartment in Back Bay. 2 bedrooms, top floor security, doorman. It's in your name. Move in this weekend if you want. Or don't. The offer stands either way." I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. "You already rented me an apartment?" "I'm a man who plans ahead." "You're a man who assumes I'll say yes." "No." His voice softened almost imperceptibly. I'm a man who hopes you will. Sophia's voice rang out across the playground. Mama, watch this. I turned automatically, watching her attempt to dismount from the monkey bars that made my heart leap into my throat. She landed safely, beamed at me, then noticed Dante. Her smile didn't fade, but she grew cautious. Studied him the way she studied new things. Careful, assessing. Then she walked over, stopping just behind me, one hand gripping my jacket. Who's that? She whispered, loud enough that Dante definitely heard. A friend, I said, because I didn't know what else to call him. Dante crouched down, bringing himself to Sophia's eye level. The movement was surprisingly gentle. My name is Dante. You must be Sophia. She nodded slowly. You know my name? Your mama told me about you. A lie, delivered smoothly. Sophia considered this. Do you have kids? Something passed over his face. Pain, maybe, or memory. It was gone before I could be sure. No, he said quietly. I don't. Oh. Sophia processed this information with the seriousness of a judge. That's sad. Kids are nice. Despite everything, the fear, the anger, the impossible situation pressing down on me, I almost smiled. Dante stood slowly, his eyes meeting mine, over Sophia's head. In them, I saw something I hadn't expected. Loneliness, real and raw and quickly hidden. The offer expires Friday at 6 p.m., he said. After that, I can't guarantee what happens. He walked away before I could respond, disappearing into the gray afternoon like smoke. Sophia tugged my hand. Mama? Was he really your friend? I looked down at the envelope in my hand, feeling its weight. I don't know yet, baby, I said honestly. I really don't know. I opened the envelope that night after Sophia fell asleep. The lease agreement was real, professionally printed, legally binding, my name already typed in the tenant field. 2 bedrooms, 1,200 square feet, a building with actual security cameras that worked. The monthly rent listed was $3,000. I made $700 a week. On a good week. There was something else in the envelope, a key card for the building, and a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. No obligation. Stay there tonight if you need to feel safe. The choice is still yours. I sat at my kitchen table until midnight, coffee going cold in my cup, trying to find the catch. Men like Dante Caruso didn't offer things without expecting something in return. Protection came with chains attached, even when those chains looked like luxury apartments and promises of safety. But I kept thinking about what he'd said. Someone tried to get into the building. His men stopped them. How many more would come? How long before one of them succeeded? I called in sick to work the next morning, something I never did, and took Sophia to school like normal. Watched her disappear into her classroom, laughing at something her friend Maya said. Safe, for now. Oblivious to the danger circling her life. The number on Dante's card rang twice before he answered. Elena. Not a question, like he'd been waiting. I need to know what you're not telling me. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Why marriage? Why me specifically? If this is really about my brother's debt, there are easier ways to handle it. Silence on the other end. Not empty silence. I could hear him breathing, could almost feel him choosing his words. Can you meet me? He asked finally. There's something I need to show you. I'm not going anywhere isolated with you. The public garden, by the swan boats. 20 minutes. He hung up before I could refuse. I should have gone home, should have locked the door and ignored him and figured out literally any other solution. Instead, I found myself walking toward the garden, hands shoved in my pockets, trying to control the tremor in my fingers. Dante was already there, sitting on a bench facing the empty boat dock. November had killed most of the flowers, left everything gray and dormant. He looked different in daylight. Still dangerous, but somehow more human. Tired, maybe. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. I sat down, leaving 2 feet of space between us. "I'm listening," I said. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then handed it to me. A photograph of a woman, mid-20s, dark hair, green eyes, laughing at something off camera. She was beautiful in an effortless way, the kind of beauty that didn't need trying. "Her name was Lucia," Dante said quietly, "my fiancée. She died 3 years ago." I looked at him sharply. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what—" "She was killed because of me." His voice was flat, factual. "A rival family. They wanted to send a message. She wasn't involved in anything. She worked at an art gallery, spent her weekends volunteering at an animal shelter. But she was mine, so they took her." The words landed heavy between us. I looked back at the photo, at Lucia's smile, trying to imagine what came after this moment. What ended it? "After she died, I made changes," Dante continued. "Restructured everything. Made myself—" He paused, searching for words. "Untouchable, I suppose. No visible weaknesses. No attachments. It worked. But it also meant—" He trailed off. "It meant you were alone," I finished softly. "Yes." He took the phone back, looked at Lucia's picture for a moment before pocketing it. "My family has expectations. My mother especially. She's old-fashioned. Believes a man in my position needs a wife, needs stability, needs heirs eventually. She's been pushing for years, introducing me to appropriate women from appropriate families." Understanding was starting to dawn, cold and uncomfortable. "So you need a wife for appearances," I said. "Someone who looks legitimate but isn't actually involved? Someone you can keep at arm's length." "Someone I can protect without endangering," he corrected. "Someone who needs what I can offer enough to accept the terms. And someone—" He looked at me directly now, those gray eyes searching. "Someone I won't fall in love with." The honesty of it stole my breath. "Why wouldn't you fall in love with me?" I asked, and immediately felt stupid for asking. "Because you'll hate me," he said simply. "You'll resent the situation, the circumstances that forced your hand. You'll take what I offer and build a life for your daughter, but you'll never forgive me for putting you in a position where you had to choose. And that distance, that's what keeps you safe." I stared at him. This man who'd planned out our entire relationship like a business transaction, who'd calculated exactly how to keep me close but separate, protected but untouchable. "That's incredibly sad," I said. Something flickered in his expression. "Perhaps. But it's honest." We sat in silence for a while. I watched dead leaves skitter across the empty boat dock, thought about Lucia's smile, about Sophia's future, about all the ways love could be weaponized against the people who carried it. "I want conditions," I heard myself say. Dante turned to face me fully. "Name them." "Sophia never meets your family. She doesn't get involved in any of this. And if anything happens to me, anything, she goes to my friend Gianna, not into your world." "Agreed." "I keep working. Both jobs if I want them." "Agreed. Though you won't need to financially." "I'll need to for me." I took a breath. "And you don't lie to me. Not about the dangers, not about what this life means. I'm walking in with open eyes or not at all." He studied me for a long moment, and I saw respect flicker across his face. "Deal," he said and extended his hand. I looked at it, this handshake that would change everything, and thought about Sophia's crack-heeled turtle, about bravery and survival and the things we do for the people we love. I took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, and somehow felt like falling. We were married on a Thursday afternoon in a judge's chambers that smelled like old books and lemon polish. I wore a navy dress I already owned, the one I saved for parent-teacher conferences. Dante wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The old rent, not the new apartment I still hadn't moved into. Two witnesses stood in the corner, men whose names I didn't catch and didn't ask for. The ceremony took 7 minutes. Do you, Dante Caruso, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Elena Vega, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I thought about Sophia, safe at preschool, completely unaware that her life was being rewritten, about the stack of medical bills on my kitchen counter, about that black car idling outside our window at dawn. I do. The judge smiled like this was normal, like we were normal, like people got married every day for reasons that had nothing to do with love. Maybe they did. Dante slid a ring onto my finger. White gold. Simple. Elegant. Not an engagement ring, I noticed. Just a wedding band. No promises beyond the legal ones we just made. You may kiss the bride. We both went still. Somehow, in all the negotiating and planning, we hadn't discussed this part. Dante leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. His hand came up to my cheek, gentle, and I caught the scent of his cologne, cedar and something darker. His lips brushed mine, soft and brief and completely chaste. It felt like signing a contract. Afterward, in the hallway outside the judge's chambers, Dante handed me another envelope. Bank account information, it's in your name. There's $50,000 to start. I nearly dropped it. I can't. You can. His voice was firm, but not unkind. Consider it back pay for the last 3 years of struggling alone. You're my wife now, Elena. That means you don't carry burdens by yourself anymore. This doesn't feel real, I said quietly. It will. He checked his watch. I have a meeting in an hour. My driver will take you wherever you need to go. The new apartment. Your old place. Sophia's school. Anywhere. Just like that? We're married and you're leaving. I told you this would be a practical arrangement. But something in his voice sounded almost apologetic. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be clear. I looked down at the ring on my finger. This circle of gold that meant everything and nothing. Okay, I said. Clear. I understand. He nodded once, then walked away, his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway until they faded completely. I stood there alone, a married woman, feeling more untethered than I'd felt in years. I picked up Sophia early again, and this time I told Mrs. Chen I wouldn't need her to babysit anymore. You find better job? She asked hopefully. Something like that, I said, and pressed $200 into her hand over her protests. For all the times I paid you late. Thank you for being patient with us. Her eyes filled with tears. You good mama? Sophia lucky girl. I wasn't sure about that, but I hugged her anyway. At the old apartment, I packed our lives into boxes with an efficiency born from years of practice. We didn't have much. Sophia's clothes, her toys, my work uniforms, books and dishes, and the accumulated weight of small, necessary things. Mama, why are we packing? Sophia asked from her doorway, clutching her rabbit. We're moving, baby. To a new place. Is it far? Not too far, but it's bigger. You'll have your own room with a real closet. She processed this seriously. Can I paint my walls? The question caught me off guard. I'd never let her paint anything. We rented. We couldn't afford deposits. We lived carefully within other people's rules. Yes, I said and watched her face light up. Whatever color you want. She threw her arms around my neck. Pink. All pink. Like a princess castle. All pink it is. We moved that evening. Dante's driver, a quiet man named Vincent, helped carry boxes, never asking questions, never commenting on how little we had. The new apartment was on the 8th floor, all windows and light, hardwood floors that gleamed. Sophia ran from room to room, shrieking with joy. "Mama, there's a bathtub, a big one. Can we take a bath with bubbles?" "Yes, sweetheart." "And look, look." She pressed her face against the living room window. "I can see the lights. So many lights." I watched her discover space and possibility, watched her claim territory in this new life, and felt something crack open in my chest. Not quite happiness, not quite relief. Something more complicated. The apartment came furnished, tastefully, expensively. Someone had already stocked the kitchen with basics. The refrigerator held milk, eggs, fresh fruit. Like Dante had thought of everything, anticipated every need. It should have felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like being seen. After Sophia fell asleep in her new pink-walled bedroom, Vincent had driven us to a hardware store, helped me buy paint, never once questioned the urgency. I stood in the living room and called the number Dante had given me. "Elena." He answered on the first ring again. "Is everything all right?" "Fine. Good. The apartment it's beautiful. Sophia loves it." "Good." A pause. "Is that why you called?" "No." I twisted the ring on my finger, this new weight I was still learning. "I called to say thank you, and to ask." I hesitated. "Where are you? Where do you live?" "Why?" "Because I'm your wife, and I don't know where you sleep at night." "It feels strange." Silence for a long moment. Then, "Beacon Hill, the brownstone on the corner of Chestnut and Charles." "The one with the blue door?" "Yes." I'd walked past that building 100 times. It was beautiful, historic, elegant, the kind of place that belonged in magazines. "We're not that far apart," I said quietly. "No," he agreed. "We're not." "Dante?" "Yes?" This was the right choice. For Sophia. "I need you to know I don't regret it." "Yet," he said softly. "Yet," I conceded. We stayed on the line for a moment longer, neither of us speaking, just breathing in our separate spaces that were somehow now connected. Finally, he said goodnight. I stood at my new window, looking out at the city lights, wearing another woman's ring, and wondered what I'd just begun. The first week of marriage, I didn't see Dante at all. He texted twice, once to ask if we needed anything, once to tell me his mother wanted to meet me next Sunday. I responded, "We're fine, thank you and okay," because I didn't know what else to say to the stranger I'd legally bound myself to. Sophia adjusted faster than I did. She loved her pink bedroom, loved the doorman who learned her name within 2 days, loved that we could afford the good strawberry yogurt now instead of the store brand. She didn't ask about the sudden change in our circumstances. 4-year-olds accepted magic more easily than adults. I kept both my jobs at first, out of principle, more than necessity. But Marcello's felt different now. Gianna kept watching me with questions in her eyes, questions I couldn't answer. The regular customers noticed the ring, made assumptions I didn't correct. On Friday, I dropped a full tray of pasta again. This time, Marco came out from the kitchen. "Elena." His voice was gentle. "Whatever's going on with you, you need time to sort it. Take a week. 2. We'll manage." "I can't just—" "You can." He squeezed my shoulder. "You've never taken a sick day in 3 years. Take the time. Your spot will be here when you're ready." I left work early, picked up Sophia, and took her to the public garden. The same bench where Dante had told me about Lucia, about loneliness, about the architecture of a marriage built on distance. Sophia fed the ducks while I sat and thought about what it meant to grieve a life while living it. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "There's a car outside your building. Black sedan. It's not mine. Don't go home alone. D. My heart kicked into a different rhythm. I looked around the park, suddenly aware of every shadow, every person lingering too long. I called him. He answered before the first ring finished. Where are you? His voice was sharp. Public garden. With Sophia. Stay there. I'm sending Vincent. 10 minutes. Dante, what? Someone's watching the building. I don't know who yet, but I'm finding out. Background noise suggested movement, urgency. Elena, listen to me. This is what I meant about being honest. There will be threats. Not constant, but they'll come. People testing boundaries, seeing if the marriage is real or just strategy. And how do we prove it's real? My voice came out steadier than I felt. He was quiet for a moment. By being seen together. By making them believe I'd burn the world down for you. Something in his tone made my skin prickle. Not fear exactly. Something else. Would you? I asked quietly. Burn the world down for someone you barely know? I'd burn it down for the principle, he said, for the message it sends. Honest, I thought. He'd promised honesty. Vincent arrived in 9 minutes. He drove us to Dante's brownstone without being asked, like he'd already received instructions. The blue door opened before we reached it. Dante stood in the doorway, still in a suit, but with his tie loosened, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His eyes went to Sophia first, checking for danger, then to me. You're okay, he said. Not a question, a reassurance he needed to speak aloud. We're fine. I gestured to his house. Can we? Yes. Come in. The interior matched the exterior. Old money elegance. Everything carefully chosen. Nothing out of place. It should have felt cold. Instead, it felt deliberately maintained, like Dante was trying to preserve something that was slowly slipping away. Sophia's eyes went wide. Is this a castle? Something like that, Dante said, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Would you like to see the library? It has a ladder that slides. She looked at me for permission. I nodded, and she took Dante's offered hand with the easy trust of children who hadn't learned fear yet. I followed them through rooms that smelled like leather and old wood and money, watching Dante crouch down to show Sophia how the ladder worked, his movements careful and almost tender. My mother used to push me around in this when I was small, he said, demonstrating the slide mechanism. I thought it was the best toy in the world. Can I try? Sophia asked. If your mother says it's safe? They both looked at me. I found myself nodding again, watching my daughter climb into a rolling library ladder like it was an amusement park ride while a Mafia boss steadied the base. This, I thought, this is my life now. After Sophia had exhausted the ladder's entertainment value, Dante ordered dinner. Thai food that appeared 30 minutes later, delivered by someone who clearly knew the house. We ate at his dining room table, Sophia chattering about her day, while Dante listened with surprising attention. And then, Maya said her cat had babies, but Miss Jennifer said we can't bring kittens to school, which is sad because I love kittens. Do you love kittens? She directed this question at Dante, who considered it seriously. I've never had a pet, he admitted. Never? Sophia looked scandalized. Not even a fish? Not even a fish. That's sad. She patted his hand with the same solemnity she'd shown at the park. Everyone should have something small to love. I watched something pass over Dante's face, that same flash of pain I'd seen when she'd asked if he had children. He recovered quickly, but not before I saw it. After dinner, I carried an exhausted Sophia to one of Dante's guest rooms. When I came back downstairs, he was standing by the window, phone in hand, his expression dark. The car outside your building, he said without turning. It was a reporter. Someone tipped them off about the marriage. A reporter? I moved closer. That's all? Not someone dangerous? Information is dangerous. He finally looked at me. Especially when it's about vulnerabilities, about what matters. I'm not sure I matter, I said quietly. Not to you. Not really. He closed the distance between us in 3 steps. Didn't touch me, but stood close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the tension coiled in his frame. You're wearing my ring, he said, voice low. You're living under my protection. You're raising your daughter in safety I provided. Don't tell me you don't matter. That's not the same as actually mattering to you. No, he agreed. It's not. The honesty stung, but I'd asked for it. We should go, I said. Let you have your space back. Stay tonight. Not a command, almost a request. It's late. Sophia's already asleep, and He stopped himself. You what? I'd like the practice, he said carefully, of having you here, of making this look real. So I stayed, in a house that wasn't mine, with a man who was my husband-in-law only, and tried not to think about how easy it would be to want more than we'd agreed to. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of Sophia's laughter somewhere below. For a disorienting moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it came back. Dante's brownstone, the guest room with sheets that felt like silk. The strange intimacy of sleeping under his roof. I found them in the kitchen. Sophia sat at the island in her pajamas, swinging her legs, while Dante stood at the stove making pancakes. He'd rolled up his sleeves, abandoned the suit for dark jeans and a gray Henley. He looked younger like this. Almost normal. Mama? Sophia beamed. Dante makes pancakes shaped like things. Look, this one's a butterfly. I studied the lopsided creation on her plate. That's very impressive. My mother insisted I learn to cook, Dante said, without turning from the stove. She said a man who can't feed himself is half a man. He glanced over his shoulder. Coffee's ready. Mugs are in the cabinet above the machine. I poured myself a cup, watching him flip another pancake, this one attempting to be a flower. The domesticity of the scene felt surreal. This was the man whose name made people nervous in restaurants, who commanded enough fear that enemies sent cars to watch his wife's building. And he was making my daughter breakfast in the shape of butterflies. Do you have syrup? Sophia asked. I have 3 kinds. Dante opened a cabinet, revealing an array of bottles. Maple, blueberry, and chocolate. Chocolate? Sophia looked at me with pleading eyes. It's Saturday, I said, giving in. Just this once. While Sophia drowned her butterflies in chocolate syrup, Dante plated another pancake and set it in front of me. A heart. Imperfect and slightly burned on one edge, but unmistakably a heart. Our eyes met. He looked almost embarrassed. Sophia requested it, he said quickly. I said Mama loves hearts, Sophia confirmed through a mouthful of pancake. I smiled despite myself, cutting into the pancake. Thank you. We ate in comfortable silence, broken only by Sophia's commentary on everything from the chandelier, so sparkly, to Dante's coffee maker. It's so big. Does it make giant coffee? After breakfast, Dante's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression shifted, all the softness evaporating in an instant. I need to take this, he said. Elena, there's a playroom on the 3rd floor. Sophia can... A playroom? Sophia was already sliding off her stool. My sister's children visit sometimes, Dante explained, already heading toward his study. Everything's safe. She can't hurt herself. He disappeared behind a heavy oak door. I heard his voice, low and sharp, speaking rapid Italian. Sophia tugged my hand. Can we see the playroom? Sure, baby. The 3rd floor was a revelation. The playroom held more toys than Sophia had seen in her entire life. A dollhouse taller than me, art supplies in organized bins, stuffed animals arranged on built-in shelves. Sophia stood in the doorway, stunned into silence. "Is this real?" she whispered. "Very real." She moved through the space like she was afraid touching things might make them disappear. Eventually, she settled at a small table with markers and paper, drawing with intense concentration. I sat nearby, watching her, trying not to think about how easily she was adapting to luxury, how quickly children learn to take abundance for granted. Dante found us an hour later. His expression was carefully neutral, but tension lived in his shoulders. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Define okay." He leaned against the doorframe, watching Sophia draw. "That reporter last night? He published a story. Pictures of you and Sophia at the park. Speculation about our marriage. Questions about whether it's legitimate." My stomach dropped. "Pictures of Sophia?" "Her face isn't clear. I've already had my lawyer send a cease and desist." He crossed to the window, looking out at the street below. "But more will come. This is what I meant about proving the marriage is real. We need to be seen together. Publicly. As a family." "How public?" "Dinner tonight. At Sorellina. It's where my family conducts business, where people watch and draw conclusions." He turned to face me. "My mother will be there, my sister, some associates. It's time for them to meet you." "Sophia too?" "No." His voice was firm. "We keep her separate. This is about appearance, not exposure. Vincent can stay with her here. She'll be safe." I looked at my daughter, contentedly drawing rainbows and cats, completely unaware of the performance we were being asked to give. "What do I need to know?" I asked. "About your family, about how to act." Dante moved closer, his voice dropping. "My mother is traditional. Old-world Italian. She'll ask invasive questions, judge everything from your dress to your posture. My sister Gabriella is kinder but equally observant. The associates will watch to see if you're afraid of me." "Should I be?" "No." He said it without hesitation. "But they need to believe you're not because you trust me, not because you're naive." "How do I show that?" He studied me for a long moment. "May I touch you?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "To demonstrate. Small touches. The kind married people exchange without thinking." He held up his hands, showing me they were empty, harmless. "Only if you're comfortable." I nodded slowly. He stepped closer, his hand coming to rest gently at the small of my back. The warmth of his palm seeped through my shirt. "Like this," he said quietly. "Casual, possessive without being aggressive. It says you're mine, but you chose it." His other hand came up to brush a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture tender. "These small intimacies, they tell a story." My heart was beating too fast. His face was inches from mine, his gray eyes searching. "And what story are we telling?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That I'm a man who found something worth protecting." His thumb traced my cheekbone, so light I might have imagined it. "And you're a woman brave enough to let me." "Mama," Sophia called, breaking the spell. "Can you draw with me?" Dante stepped back immediately, the professional distance slamming back into place. "Tonight, 7 o'clock, he said. "Wear something that makes you feel powerful. Not for them. For you." He left before I could respond. I joined Sophia at her art table, my skin still warm where he'd touched me, and tried to remember that this was pretend. Just pretend. Nothing more. I stood in front of my closet at 6:30, staring at clothes that suddenly felt inadequate. Dante had sent a stylist that afternoon, a woman named Lucia, which felt like a sign I couldn't interpret, who'd arrived with garment bags and quiet efficiency. She'd left 3 dresses, all beautiful, all expensive enough to make me nauseous. I chose the midnight blue one, simple, elegant, with a neckline that suggested confidence without desperation. The fabric moved like water. Sophia watched me get ready from my bed, Vincent having already arrived to stay with her. She'd accepted his presence with the adaptability of children, showing him her entire stuffed animal collection while explaining each one's backstory. "You look like a princess," she said, as I clasped a delicate silver necklace, also from Lucia, also borrowed. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume." "That's what princesses do. They wear costumes until they become real." The wisdom of 4-year-olds. I kissed her forehead, breathing in her strawberry shampoo. "Be good for Vincent. Bedtime at 8:30. "Will Dante be there?" she asked. "At your fancy dinner?" "Yes." "Good." She nodded seriously. "He should take care of you too, not just me." Something in my chest pulled tight. "We'll be home soon, baby." Dante arrived at precisely 7. He wore a black suit that looked like it cost more than my first car, his hair pushed back, his expression unreadable. But his eyes traveled over me slowly, cataloging every detail. "You look beautiful," he said, and it sounded like a fact, not a compliment. "I look expensive," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Tonight, they're the same thing." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." The restaurant was everything I'd expected. Dim lighting, Italian marble, the kind of place where every table held conversations that moved money or ended lives. We were shown to a private room in the back, and I felt every eye follow us as we walked. Dante's hand stayed at my back the entire time, steady, grounding. His family was already seated. His mother, Adriana, was elegant in a way that felt weaponized. Silver hair perfectly styled, posture military straight, eyes that missed nothing. His sister, Gabriella, was softer, warmer, though I caught steel underneath. 3 men I didn't recognize sat at the far end of the table, watching with the stillness of predators. "Mama," Dante said, his hand sliding to my waist, "this is Elena, my wife." The word hung in the air. Adriana's gaze moved over me slowly, assessing, measuring, finding me lacking in ways I'd probably never understand. "So you're the woman my son married without telling his family," she said in English, heavily accented with Italian. "Sit. Let me look at you properly." I sat. Dante remained standing behind my chair, one hand resting on my shoulder. A statement of solidarity or ownership. I wasn't sure which. "You're pretty," Adriana continued, "but Boston has many pretty girls. Why you?" "Mama," Gabriella started. "No, it's fine." I met Adriana's eyes directly. "I don't know why me. You'd have to ask your son." Something flickered in Adriana's expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "You have a child?" she said. "A daughter. Sophia? She's 4. And her father?" "Not in the picture. Never was." "So my son takes another man's responsibility." Adriana's voice held judgment. "Raises a child that isn't his blood." I felt Dante's hand tighten on my shoulder. A warning or restraint. I couldn't tell. But before he could speak, I leaned forward. "Your son offered protection when no one else would," I said quietly. "He offered my daughter safety. That makes him more of a father than the man who contributed DNA and disappeared." Silence around the table. Even the associates stopped pretending not to listen. Then Adriana smiled. Sharp. Approving. "You have spine. Good. Dante needs a woman with spine." She raised her wine glass. "Welcome to this family, Elena. May you survive it." The toast felt like a threat and a blessing simultaneously. Dinner was a careful dance. Gabriella asked gentle questions about Sophia, about my work, clearly trying to make me comfortable. The associates watched but didn't speak directly to me, some kind of protocol I didn't understand. Adriana continued her assessment, commenting on everything from my posture to my wine choice. And Dante played his role perfectly. His hand found mine under the table. He served me from shared dishes before himself. When Adriana made a particularly cutting remark, he responded in rapid Italian that made his sister hide a smile and his mother's eyes narrow. "What did you say?" I whispered. "That she should remember what happened to the last person who insulted my wife." His voice was low, amused. "There is no last person, but she doesn't know that." I should have been alarmed. Instead, I found myself fighting a smile. 2 hours in, one of the associates' phones buzzed. He checked it, and his expression changed. He leaned toward Dante, whispering something I couldn't hear. Dante's entire body went rigid. "Excuse us," he said, standing abruptly. "Family matter." He pulled me up with him, his grip on my hand almost painful. We left the private room, walked through the restaurant, and didn't stop until we were outside in the cold November air. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Your apartment building. Someone tried to get into your old unit." His voice was ice. "They didn't know you'd moved. But they were looking for you, Elena. They had tools. Intent." The world tilted sideways. "Who?" "I don't know yet. But someone wants to send me a message." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Vincent. Status on Sophia. Good. Lockdown. No one in or out until I get there." He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something like fear in his eyes. "This is what I meant," he said quietly. "About making them believe. They're testing me. Testing whether you're really mine or just strategy." "And how do we convince them?" He stepped closer, his hands framing my face, tilting it up toward his. His thumbs brushed my cheekbones, and I realized he was trembling. "By making it true," he said. Then he kissed me. Not like at the courthouse, chaste and brief, and meaningless. This was deep, desperate, acclaiming. His hands tangled in my hair, his body pressed against mine, and I felt every careful wall he'd built come crashing down. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Tomorrow," he said, voice rough, "you and Sophia move into my house. No more separate lives, no more distance. We make this marriage real, or everyone you love becomes a target. Dante, I can't lose another person because I wasn't willing to commit fully." His forehead pressed against mine. "I won't make that mistake again." And I realized, standing in the cold outside an Italian restaurant, that everything had just changed. The performance was over. This was real now. All of it. We picked up Sophia together. She was asleep on Dante's couch when we arrived, Vincent reading nearby with the vigilance of a man trained to notice threats. Dante lifted her without waking her, cradling her against his chest with surprising gentleness, while I gathered her rabbit and shoes. "The brownstone," he told Vincent quietly. "Sweep every room before we arrive." In the car, Sophia stirred once, mumbled something about butterflies, then settled back against Dante's shoulder. I watched him adjust his hold, supporting her head, his expression unguarded in the darkness. "You're good with her," I said. "I don't know what I'm doing." Neither do most parents. We just pretend we do. He looked at me across the back seat, Sophia between us, and something in his expression made my chest ache. "I meant what I said earlier," he told me quietly, "about making this real. I know it's not what we agreed to." "Someone tried to break into my apartment tonight." My voice was steadier than I felt. "Someone dangerous enough that you're afraid. So yes, we make it real. For Sophia. For safety." "And for you?" he asked. "What do you want, Elena?" The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me what I wanted in years. Survival didn't leave room for wanting. "I want my daughter safe," I said finally. "I want to stop calculating which bills I can defer. I want. I trailed off, unsure how to finish. What? I want to stop being afraid all the time. His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers lacing through mine. Then let me give you that. Even if you can't give me anything back. That's not fair to you. I'm not asking for fair. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I'm asking for a chance to do this right, to protect what matters without keeping it at arm's length. We drove the rest of the way in silence, hands clasped, Sophia sleeping between us, and I wondered if this was how marriages became real, not through grand gestures, but through small surrenders in the dark. The next morning, I packed up the apartment Dante had rented, the one we'd lived in for barely a week. Sophia helped by stuffing her favorite toys into boxes with the chaotic enthusiasm of a 4-year-old. "Are we moving again?" she asked, holding up her rabbit. "Mr. Flops wants to know." "Yes, baby, to Dante's house. For real this time. The one with the library ladder?" "That's the one." She considered this seriously. "Will he make us pancakes every day?" "Probably not every day." "That's okay. I like cereal too." She returned to packing, already adjusted, already accepting. I wished I could adapt as easily. Dante arrived at noon with Vincent and another man, Carlo, who moved furniture with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. They worked quickly, professionally, loading boxes into a truck while I tried not to think about how this was the third place I'd lived in as many weeks. Except this time felt different. Permanent, maybe. Or at least, permanent adjacent. At the brownstone, Dante showed us to the second floor. "This wing is yours. Bedroom for you, bedroom for Sophia, bathroom between. My room is on the third floor. You'll have privacy." "Separate floors," I said. "That's very real." He caught the sarcasm. "Elena." "No, I understand. We're making it look real for them. But between us?" I gestured at the careful distance. "Still practical." "I'm trying to do the right thing." "I know." And I did. But it didn't stop the strange disappointment curling in my stomach. "Thank you. For the space. For all of it." He looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he just nodded and left to help Vincent with the heavier boxes. We spent the afternoon settling in. Sophia claimed her new room with joy, insisting on arranging her stuffed animals by size on the built-in shelves. I unpacked our clothes, hung our pictures, tried to make the beautiful space feel like ours. Around 4, Gabriella arrived with her 2 children, Marco, 7, and Isabella, 5. She found me in the kitchen, attempting to figure out Dante's complicated espresso machine. "It's easier if you press the button twice," she said, smiling. I jumped. "I didn't hear you come in." "Sorry, Dante gave me a key years ago." She moved past me, expertly coaxing the machine to life. "I wanted to meet you properly. Last night was a lot. Mama can be overwhelming." "She's protective of Dante." "She's terrified for him," Gabriella corrected gently. "After Lucia died, he shut down completely. Became this," she gestured vaguely, "cold version of himself. We thought we'd lost him too. Then suddenly he's married and there's a child and—" She handed me a perfect espresso. "I don't know what arrangement you two have. I don't need to. But I see the way he looks at you. And it's not nothing. It's complicated. Marriage usually is." She leaned against the counter. "My children are in the playroom with Sophia. Want to tell me the truth? Off the record?" So I did. Not everything. Not the threats or Marcus's debt or the broken window of motivation. But enough. The practical arrangement. The separate lives. The agreement to keep distance. Gabriella listened without judgment, sipping her espresso. "You know what I think?" she said finally. "I think you both wanted the same thing. Safety, without vulnerability. But that's not how it works. You can't have one without the other." He lost someone he loved. I understand why he'd want distance. And you? Gabriella's eyes were kind but sharp. What are you protecting yourself from? The question landed harder than it should have. I thought about Sophia's father, about Marcus, about every person who'd left or disappointed or failed to show up, about learning to need no one because needing people meant they could hurt you. Everything, I said quietly. Gabriella squeezed my hand. Then maybe you and my brother are exactly what each other needs. Two people brave enough to try something different. That evening, after Gabriella left and Sophia was bathed and tucked into her new bed, I found Dante in his study. He was at his desk, papers spread before him. But he wasn't working, just staring at nothing. "Hey," I said from the doorway. He looked up, and something in his expression cracked open. Exhaustion, maybe. Or loneliness. "Come in," he said. "Please." I crossed to his desk and he stood, meeting me halfway. We stood there in the lamplight, inches apart, married and strange and trying to figure out what we were building. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "Make something real that started as strategy." "Neither do I." His hand came up, hesitant, then settled against my cheek. "But I want to try, if you'll let me." I leaned into his touch, letting myself feel it, the warmth, the connection, the terrifying possibility of something more. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's try." He kissed me then, soft and careful, and nothing like last night's desperation. This was a question, an offering. I kissed him back, and felt everything shift. Real, I thought. We were making it real. 3 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming through windows that had become familiar. Our bedroom, not mine, ours, still surprised me some mornings. The way Dante's coffee cup sat on his nightstand, half empty from the night before when he'd been reading. The way his clothes hung beside mine in the closet. The way his breathing had become the sound I fell asleep to. It hadn't happened all at once, this merging of lives. The first week, we'd maintained our separate floors, circling each other like uncertain dancers. Then Sophia had a nightmare, and when I went to comfort her, I found Dante already there, sitting on the edge of her bed, telling her a story about a brave princess who rescued herself. The second week, he'd started joining us for breakfast every morning, no longer just weekends. Started asking about my day like he actually wanted to know. Started touching me in passing, a hand on my shoulder, fingers brushing mine. Small intimacies that felt less like performance and more like habit. By the third week, I'd found myself in his study late one night, unable to sleep, and he'd pulled me onto the couch beside him. We'd talked until dawn about everything and nothing. About his father, who'd died when Dante was 19. About my mother, who'd left when I was 12. About the weight of responsibility and the cost of protection. "I'm afraid of failing you," he'd admitted as the sky turned gray. "The way I failed Lucia." "You didn't fail her. Someone killed her. That's not the same thing." "Isn't it? I brought danger into her life. I made her a target." I'd taken his hand, laced our fingers together. "Then we're even. Because I brought chaos into yours. A ready-made family. A brother's debt. Complications you didn't ask for." "I asked for you," he'd said quietly. Maybe not at first. But somewhere along the way, I started asking. That night, I'd slept in his bed for the first time. Just sleep. He'd held me carefully, like I might break. And we'd fallen asleep tangled together, breathing in sync. Now I rolled over to find him already awake, watching me with an expression I'd learned to recognize. Contentment mixed with disbelief. Like he couldn't quite believe this was real. "How long have you been staring?" I asked. "Not staring, observing." "Creepy." "Attentive," he corrected, pulling me closer. There's a difference. I settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. This steady rhythm that had become home. Sophia has a field trip today. The aquarium. I know, I signed the permission slip. You signed it as her father. Silence for a moment. Then, is that okay? I lifted my head to look at him. You've been more of a father to her in 3 months than her biological one ever was. So yes, it's more than okay. Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability I rarely saw. She asked me yesterday if she could call me Dad. My heart squeezed. What did you say? I said I'd be honored, but only if she wanted to, that there was no pressure. He touched my face, gentle. She said she wanted to, that I do dad things, make pancakes and help with homework and tuck her in at night. You do, I agreed softly. You're good at it. I'm terrified I'll mess it up. Welcome to parenting. That feeling never goes away. We lay there together, comfortable in the quiet, until Sophia's voice drifted up from downstairs. She was singing to herself in the kitchen, probably arranging her cereal by color again. Dante kissed my forehead. I should start breakfast. It's Saturday, we could sleep in. We could, he agreed. But she's excited about the aquarium, and I promised her special French toast. I watched him dress. This man who'd transformed from dangerous stranger to partner to something deeper I was still learning to name. He caught me watching and smiled, real and unguarded. What? He asked. Just thinking about how different this is from what we planned. Better or worse? Different, I said. Complicated. Real. Real. He echoed. Yeah, it is. The aquarium was crowded with field-tripping children and exhausted teachers. Sophia held Dante's hand on one side, mine on the other, pulling us toward the penguin exhibit with determined enthusiasm. Look, they're swimming. She pressed her face against the glass. Dad, can you swim like that? Dante crouched beside her. Not quite that well, but I can teach you this summer. If you want to. Learn. Really? Her eyes went wide. At a real pool? At the ocean, he said. We have a house on the Cape. You and your mom can come for July. All of July. She threw her arms around his neck, and I watched his expression transform. Pure joy mixed with something like wonder. Like he couldn't believe this small person loved him so completely. I pulled out my phone, captured the moment. Father and daughter, the aquarium light turning everything blue and dreamlike. Later, while Sophia was occupied with a touch tank, Dante found me by the jellyfish exhibit. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For taking a chance on this. On me. He took my hand, his thumb tracing the wedding band I no longer thought of as costume jewelry. I know it started as transaction, strategy, but Elena... He turned to face me fully. I love you. I don't know when it happened. Maybe gradually. Maybe all at once. But I do. And I know we never talked about that being part of this, but I needed you to know. My throat felt tight. Dante, you don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know that this is real for me. All of it. You, Sophia. This life we're building. It's everything. I looked at this man who'd started as threat and become sanctuary. Who made my daughter pancakes and held me through nightmares and showed me what protection without prison felt like. I love you too, I said, and watched his face transform. I think I have for a while. I was just afraid to admit it. He kissed me there, surrounded by floating jellyfish and the distant sound of Sophia's laughter, and it felt like promise, like beginning. Like the first true thing either of us had built from scratch. That night, after Sophia was asleep, we sat on the back porch of the brownstone. Spring was coming. I could smell it in the air, feel it in the warming breeze. Your mother called today, I said. She wants us to come to Sunday dinner, the whole family. Do you want to go? I think Sophia would like it. She keeps asking about her cousins. Dante pulled me closer and I settled against him, comfortable in ways I'd never expected to be. We should talk about Marcus, he said quietly. I stiffened. What about him? His debt is paid, but he's still out there, still struggling. If you wanted to reach out, I don't know if I'm ready. That's okay. Just know that if you ever are, I'll support you. Whatever you need. I turned to look at him, this man who'd given me everything and asked for so little. How did I get so lucky? Lucky? He smiled, touched my face. Elena, I'm the one who married a woman who taught me how to live again, who brought light into this house, who made me believe in second chances. We saved each other, I said. Yeah. He kissed me softly. I think we did. Above us, stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky. Inside, our daughter slept safe and warm. Around us, the city hummed with life and possibility. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't afraid. I was home. We both were.